Well, we've been talking about, oh, we got recording. We've been talking about stress awareness this month. And as we roll down toward the end of this month, we're going to tend to talk a little bit about that. But one thing that can stress us sometimes is when we get in the middle of a project, not painting project for me, but other projects, we've got to keep ourselves motivated. The other day when we were on Wednesday, Angelina asked that specific question, how do I keep myself motivated? And so there are steps about things, and we talked about some of that, but it made us research a little more since Wednesday and sort of think about it and discuss it some more. So we thought we'd carry on with that today. So
And so what we call this is a podcast for any of you who are watching for their first time. And Mark and I do a podcast together a couple of times during the month. And then Mark comes on and Mark gets the mic. And then I can't interrupt him and he can do it all
that doesn't happen, but we work on that anyway. Okay.
And so what we love about doing Patreon the way we're doing it now is that we get to do it on Zoom. So we can see you guys and you guys can get us to answer questions that you might have too. So be thinking about that while you're
I'm
watching.
looking down at notes because we study this, but we got really lots of notes. So we're having to just pull pieces out because we don't have enough time to go through all of it, but we want to make sure that we do. One of the questions I think was, I think you wanted to go from here on, Donna.
So when we're talking about motivating, how many of us, I want you to think of some of these questions. Mark's good about saying questions, and I thought that was good. How many of us, when we're painting, do we think, I need some motivation to get up and paint? I know, Pat, you said that to me before.
Well, it's hard to stay motivated all the time, and especially on a project, you start projects.
I didn't plug this in. I'm gonna go ahead.
Oh, what's wrong? We'll just plug in.
I got the lights turned off, guys. Sorry.
Oh,
go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, you hit me the wrong spot. So one of the things that we're so sorry Leanne's not feeling well today, but of course in her case, she does have craft shows. Julie, do you have craft shows where you're at? Have you ever heard of a craft show or?
Yeah, there are craft shows around. Last summer I tried one, but I think it was the wrong venue. And I don't know how to price my stuff.
There's where Donna's going to talk, right? That you led right into it. Do we coach along with you earlier about this or what? Because people ask that. They say, so if I decide to do that, if I decided I wanted to make this a source of income, when I say income, maybe not for your mortgage payment, your water bill, but an income to save for something or to do something special or
pay for your hobby.
Yeah, whatever it is, the paints and brushes, then maybe how do you do that? And how do you price yourself and where do you go? And I think that's where Donna has a little more insight than myself. So
some of the things that Mark and I discussed that we thought made a difference is, and this is Stress Awareness Month, and when we're stressed, it's not just individually our personal things in our life and that we let us get stressed. Sometimes it's the painting, and if we're having a painting business situation. And most of you that have been on with us before, I know a couple of things, like Julie, when you go to the shows to learn art, you said some classes you really liked and sometimes you don't feel like it was motivating you or making you feel good in the class. And some of the others, like what was talked to us last week about her painting wasn't turning out like she wanted her painting.
Angelina.
She's
trying to figure out how to. Yes,
she said, I don't like the painting, and I picked out what I wanted, and I had it all organized and planned. So some of those things we don't realize they're making us stress. So when I was thinking about painting, what happens to me is, are we doing painting to relieve stress? Because a lot of people, like when I was going through when we were going through my daughter passing away, painting helped me not think about it 24/7. I was able to just put my mind someplace else for a while, which people have told me when they lost their loved ones or when they're in pain all the time, it just keeps your mind off of it for a little bit. And the other is, am I spending too much on it? do is
too much, not just in money, but also time.
Right.
Yeah.
And so so then when we're thinking about and how, excuse me, how to price it, or how do I get compensated for my hours? And is it, most people feel like it's healthy and they come in to my class and they tell me how it made a difference. And then we have, this is what I did when we had all of our 7 children home. I painted all the gifts for the teachers and all we had a lot of young couples getting married at church and stuff. So their wedding parties, their showers, the baby showers. So painting all those gifts saved a lot of money in our house because I didn't have to.
It wasn't income coming in, but it wasn't income going out. So it was
saving.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
I've done a lot of gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they appreciate these gifts. And, you know, the one thing I did that I've talked to you guys about before is I painted every greeting card for 5 years. I am not as motivated now to paint every greeting card because they're $1 and $1.50.
Yeah.
You know, so, but painting the cards and sending them to the sweet little ladies that are homebound at church, even though they might not know me personally, I would slide an ornament in or just send them a little hand painted postcard and I knew it made somebody feel good. And it's different than just buying a card and sending it. But so so I went down and talked about the next thing that we talked about is what is, like, if you want to paint and sell your wares, like, and this is what we've talked about over the years that we've been on doing podcasts is, and so you can go back and see some of those where we're saying, this is how we teach a class. This is how we charge for a class. Then I put on here some EDU packs that you can print off for free and go try teaching a few painting parties, you know. So right here on our site, we have postcards and different kind of printouts that you can do to email or to mail to invite people to come to your classes. And it's right here on our Patreon. And so some of that networking will help you to start a class. And so when we're talking about, when you were saying, Julie, how do you price yourself? One of the biggest things, guys, that will help you not have the stress about, I don't know how to price. I don't know how to get started. That's what we put on there, some EDU packs that you can just print them off and hand them out to your students and sit there and do a class together and just see how that feels, because we have all kinds of EDU packs. They're less expensive. They have 6 copies of each picture, so you can have
patterns.
So you can have 6 students or 12 students, because 2 students can share the picture and they can share the pattern. So that right away, those inexpensive packets, and you get to try it to see if maybe one of those you'll like. So so that takes away some stress too, because these are proven lessons that do well. They're EDU for education. They're education packs. And then the other thing is, when you get your first 4 to 5 students, they like to bring their friends, and I like to try to reward them. Like today, you know, you'll go into drawing for my painted sample, or, you know, different things like that to motivate them and get them excited to be there. But when Marc and I were talking about is compensation for your time is the best way to figure it out.
Well, one thing I've seen Donna do in the past is, and I've seen other painters do it too, is a lot of times, let's say that you're going to paint on surfaces to sell. You're going to go to a craft show, or you're going to do something like that. Got to be careful what surface it is. You know, you can't go buy a piece of what is the glass company is so expensive? The crystal company.
Fenton glass.
Yeah, or Waterford crystal. You can't do that. You're not going to be able. Now, if somebody comes to you and commissions you to paint on a piece, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
If they bring an expensive piece to you and they say, I would like to have certain roses and a name or whatever on there, that's fine.
Or a beautiful table like Pat did. She brought her table in for the furniture class, that's something that's really fun to do for somebody else that commissions you to bring it in. Pat did hydrangeas and she taught French. And so she did the Eiffel Tower and some fun things in the background. And can't you see painting that for somebody as a commission piece, Pat? Yeah, as you know, because they would say, and I like it because I could take something smaller like that to my house and do it.
The other thing is when so you got to be careful of the cost of your surface. You have to make sure that your surface is affordable. The next thing is don't try to figure that you're going to paint production. You are going to paint production to a certain point. You're not going to paint a piece that's your favorite piece. It's the best, prettiest apple you ever painted in your entire life, and you can't live without keeping it. Because what's going to happen is someone's going to say how much, and all the other apples that you were okay with are $25, and that apple's $50. They'll go, why is that one $50? And you're going to, it's not going to happen. You're not going to say, well, because I like it so much and it took me longer, blah, blah, blah. You got to be careful not to become attached to something. You can't do that.
Unless you want to keep it.
If you want to keep it, that's wonderful.
I have a few.
Yes, you can, and that's fine. Absolutely. But we're talking about here taking away the stress, and taking stress away is by having the compensation come in. And so you've got to, it's a little bit different. So you've got to look at, and you've got to be honest with yourself. If you paint 10 of these items and all of them took you 20 minutes and the last one took you 50 minutes, forget the last one for right now, set it to the side and go back to the other ones, whatever design, however you did, because that's the one.
Good.
You got to be careful, because you can just get yourself so involved and so attached that you're not thinking straight. And that causes stress, because then you go to sell and you're trying to sell and you may have a harder time selling. Remember, there's three things, and it's a little bit different, but real estate there's three important factors: location, location, and location. And with painting, if you're going to sell product, it's product, 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 and look, we were doing tinware, doing thousands of pieces a month. We weren't attached to any of them. As a matter of fact, you hated them because you're painting so much, you become detached. But sometimes, and in our case, that's the way that you get the best compensation, because we weren't attached to any of it. We didn't care. Whatever they said, that they wanted a monkey climbing a tree with bananas hanging off his ears, great, we'll paint it, and they're going to buy 500 of them or whatever. So I think you have to look at it totally different than as a painter, because you guys are artists and you're creative, and all of a sudden you go, well, I don't want to do that. Donna used to say, I don't want to have to do anything I have to repeat in painting. That's impossible to get compensation if you don't do that. You have to look at the production of it. I'm not saying you have to do it in a large way, a master way, but you have to look at it. So if you're going to paint, and that the same thing even goes if someone commissions you. Let's say someone commissions you to paint like this painting behind me here. Okay, so it's easy to go sit down and figure out how much paint you're going to use. It doesn't take a lot.
Right.
You figure out the canvases. Okay, you figure that out.
Canvas is over 100, 120.
Right, you figure all that out, and then you say, okay, now I'm going to my time. And the thing is you've got to treat it just like you would if you were at your employment. You have to sit down and really go work on it. You can't say, well, I'm going to take 6 months on this and put in 10 hours every day. You're never going to sell it. Don't worry about it. You're going to get to keep that one. If you want to sell, you got to look at it and say, what, and you can research, you can look on and see something what that sells for. But people also, one of the things that helps you guys, because you are artists and you are creative, when they're commissioning you, remember that word commission means a lot. Commission equals more compensation.
Yeah.
Because they're asking you to do something customized. So don't be bashful about saying, no problem, I can do that. I can put, whatever colors you want in it and everything else and do it. But you have to sit down and sort of figure out how many hours will that take me? And then you have to decide, what are you worth?
And then that's what with Pat would do one-on-one classes, and you have to charge more for that. And I used to say, Pat, having 2 or 3 doing one-on-one is still at the same time is still more. So you got to get your personality. And Pat would tell me what was more stressful for her or less stressful. And you learn that through experiencing it, right, Pat? You learn that through actually doing it. And so when we were talking about compensation, just a really quick thing, I would sit and paint one. Now, I'm not going to paint detail and think I can mass produce that. But one thing that you can mass produce is come up with painted roses or bouquets or whatever that we do with a larger brush really fast, and then figure out different colorways and different ways to do that, to put it on a reasonable price surface. And or I used to do shirts. So let me tell you what I did with my shirts. My shirts cost wholesale less than $3 with shipping and everything for a good 50-50 heavyweight shirt. All right, so this is just one example. It could be a mailbox, it could be a piece of wood, whatever. But then the canvases are less expensive, but sometimes people don't buy canvases as well as they buy a set of glasses, or the beautiful shirts like Pat would paint. She's won shirt awards over and over at our conventions. But what I would do was I painted one shirt. The first one, my first sample, I paint one, and I time myself. And when you paint one, it's going to take, say I take an hour and I paint this shirt. But by then I decide, this is what's most important for you guys. So Marc and I have talked about deciding what's the least amount of money you want to make. You know, what was it Leanne said the other day? I said, Leanne, you paint both sides. You're not going to get double the money because you paint both sides. And some of y'all remember what she said. You remember, Julie, what she said?
I don't, but I remember you saying that to her.
Yeah, she said, but I got better. I had the experience of learning while I was painting. I got more knowledge out of it.
And it makes it a more sellable item too. Remember
Yeah,
about that.
did.
What can sell? What makes your item stick out a little others, and it's more sellable.
Right.
So that comes back to the location, more sellable.
Okay, so when I price the one item by how many hours, and I say I want to make at least 20 an hour for my art. And if I don't want to make $10 an hour, but if I made $50 an hour, that'd even be better. But so I figure out, okay, 20 an hour, $250 to $275 for my shirt, and my paint's nominal, how much you pay for that. So
your brushes, everything,
yeah,
and all.
I know the wear and tear and all.
She's
okay,
shying away from that.
Then I paint 6. 4 shirts I did about 4, but I would put multiple mailboxes on their edge sitting around me, and I'd pick it up, put it on a spinner rack, painted ivy, flip it, painted ivy, painted something on the end, put it down beside me. And I could do multiples that way. So with my shirts, I put them on shirt boards, and I did all the grapevine hearts on all 4 shirts. Then I came back into the cabbage rose on all 4 shirts. And by the time I got back down, I could sell those even wholesale for $22 to $24 and sell retail at the art shows for more. And I ended up making way more than 20 an hour, because let me tell you, you can do in 1 hour, multiplying it like that, you're going to get, say in 2 hours, you do all 4. Swear, you can do that. Then you time yourself and say, I got $20 a shirt times 4. What's that? 80.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I did them in 2 hours. So how much is that an hour?
$40.
Oh, yeah. All right. So see how it multiplies. So, but that's, the same thing when we do private lessons, when we're teaching that one person, we're doing a charge. If you have a class of 6 people, you're going to charge, say $25, $35 for the lesson. So you have 4 people, you charge $25, that's $100, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have 1 person and you spend the same amount of time, and you need to charge $45 to $50. Mm-hmm. And so, if you have 2 hours, you've done the same thing in an hour, hour and a half with 4 people. Does that make any sense? Did I just confuse you?
Talk to men.
No, that makes sense.
Did any of that help you so far, Miss Julie?
Yeah.
Okay, so guess what? You said the show you went to, you didn't feel like was a very good show.
The venue, she said.
The venue.
It was a car show that they do a craft show at.
Yeah.
Most people weren't there to shop.
Right.
And I had people, I sold a few things and I had people then asking me because I posted stuff on Facebook. So then I had people asking me, and I have a few things that people have asked me to paint, like a little family portrait, but I said I'm really very folk arty. And I've been afraid to start it. And I think it's like I'm afraid of failure. Like, what if I put a lot into this and then they hate it, you know?
Okay. No failure unless you give up. Persistence always beats your talent. And fall 7 times, stand up 8.
As long as you stand up 8
So
times.
if you told someone beforehand it's folk art, do you remember have you ever seen the painting Donna did? It's like a 10 by 20, and it's like shadowing all these people, and it's the back of them basically.
Oh, it's the angels.
The
back
angels?
of the angels.
I'll have to look for that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, so she doesn't identify everybody's face, but she can say, oh, that's so-and-so with the brown hair, and so-and-so the blonde hair, and there's the red hair, and there's no hair, whatever. And she had, I don't know, like 20 on the board.
I've done one where I did our whole family.
Where is that? Anyway, that's an interesting.
What kind of family did they want?
She gave me a picture, and it's one of her sons isn't speaking to her, and he's a young adult, and it's her and her other kids, and it's kind of merging the families together. She likes sunflowers and she likes pink lilies. She'd like fall foliage and a sunset.
Well, my granddaughter did a whole bunch of custom things for people where she did, I even have them on my Pinterest. If you go look on my Pinterest on One Stroke and look under family pictures or whatever, she would take a pen and ink, and I used to do this look too, and just draw their faces, like the oval face with the right color hair, and maybe not even put,
but not super detailed.
No, not super detailed. And then with our paint and floating medium, a little watercolor look, and then put the flowers around it. So there's wedding pictures like that too on my thing. So go look, because those might give you some ideas. Because I looked at the Savior, Mary, Joseph, and the baby. There are things like that where you get that illusion, but you don't have to do super detail, because that would scare me. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But that would scare me.
Yeah, that's true.
And the other thing, sometimes this is what I tell people to do as far as stress awareness. Do a commission that if you felt like I always wanted to do that, but I've been nervous, and you want to try it, that's a good thing to do, because you're making yourself do it and somebody's paying you to do it. But if I am not a sign painter, and I have painted numerous signs, and I suffered through the whole thing, and at least 2 of them, they didn't like them. I wasn't good. I wasn't happy. I thought I could fix it with all the flowers. So Marc said, if you don't, I say, I'm not a sign painter. I could do it now because I've taught lettering and I've showed them how to shade it. But I shouldn't have done it back when I knew I couldn't do it. And there are some things, if they just love flowers and just want a word or two, that you can trace off online and print it. And then, because my son looked at my chairs, and I wrote on the back of each chair that I was hoping that they would be humble and kind and forgiveness on the back of every chair. And they'd say, I'm not sitting in that chair tonight, And my son walked in, my art son, and he said, who did this lettering? I went, I did. But you know what I'm saying about, if you think it's not your thing, if you're not a good landscaper or whatever, and it's not your thing, sometimes it's okay.
Yeah.
To say that you're not, right? Okay. Go ahead.
No, I'm just waiting for you. You're on the roll.
So did you understand anything I said, guys, about, no, the point I was trying to get to really quick is there's places that you have to think about not going to. You have to be smart about the place that you choose to go to, and maybe talk to somebody who's done the show before.
That's always helpful.
And we've been in a huge show with, there was probably 75 of us, and it was at a military big metal building. And
Quonset hut.
Yeah, and literally nobody came but us who were in there, and we bought from each other.
Yeah.
It was dead all day long, which meant the promoter did not let anybody know that we were there.
Yeah.
You know, so, but going to school fundraisers, if you're doing it for a good reason, or if you can do something really inexpensive and quick that people will want, if it's Christmas time and you want to do a whole bunch of ornaments and go to one of those type of shows, you can't sell your art at garage sales. You know, there's things that you have to decide.
But you can at personal home sales. If you have someone who wants to host like a
multi-artist.
Yeah, they want to have like 4 or 5 different artists. They say, Julie, I'd like to have a thing at my house. We're going to raise money for a school thing or whatever. And so whatever you sell, 10% comes back for the school thing. But 4 or 5 artists come there and they advertise it the best they can just by word of mouth, basically. And sometimes those little shows like that, you actually say, well, it's only going to be on Saturday from 10 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, just like a garage sale, but it's going to be an actual little home sale. You can get, we did some home sales with hostesses and hosts, and it really worked well. While we're on that subject, I just have to ask you, Pat, when I see you, I'm sitting here thinking, Julie says she doesn't want to paint the portrait, or she doesn't. She says she doesn't feel comfortable. So Pat, as long as you have been with cats, would you feel comfortable painting cats?
I painted Donna's black cat, then I did another version with a kitty, but trying a real one, no.
Well, what do you mean a real one? Anything you paint's real.
Like one of my cats, and make it realistic.
Like if you were commissioned by somebody in
See, I gotta believe you could, Pat. I gotta believe that you could. I'm not saying you're comfortable, but I gotta believe you could, because you're associated with that so much, and you know your cats. Like you look at your cats and you know what they're thinking sometimes, or what they're gonna do, or whatever. So I think that makes a big difference. So
she did an adorable, the big cat with the baby kitten with it. She took it to another whole realm from what I taught. So that was nice.
Yeah. Well, going back to a couple things, whenever you get in a spot where you feel like you're not comfortable painting, or you don't know what you want to do, or you're not motivated, or you're just in a little, I guess it's called a funk. You're just yuck. Everything's yuck. Couple things you can do. Okay.
As the sound. You have your glasses?
No, I don't have my glasses. You wouldn't let me have my glasses today. You want me to? What is that? Bigger purpose?
You were telling me things really quick, and I was trying to think about the stay on the purpose. So
stay on the purpose of what you're trying to achieve.
Right.
Okay.
Second.
Yeah. Second is
narrow
your tasks. Don't try to overdo. Like, for instance, say Julie decided that you're gonna try to do that commission. You're gonna try to do something like that. Start out and try to figure out, without telling them you're going to do it for them, and you can just try it and see. Keep trying. But also, when you're in those areas, reward yourself. If you say, look, that I did pretty good. That actually looks like a face. Or that's good. What is the word? When you look at the sizing?
Impression or so.
Yeah, good impression.
Perspective.
Yeah.
But what you were saying when you talked about that, you're saying 1 hour a day instead of 10 hours. Say, I'm going to wait and do 10 hours at one time.
Yeah, don't pick you're getting dinner ready, or you're doing something every day at 5 o'clock. Don't pick that as your time to paint. Find those times that are quiet when you can sit down and look at a task and look at it, with a good outlook, and don't try to finish it all up. You're not going to sit down for 10 hours straight and try to do it. You're going to try an hour today. You're going to try an hour 2 days from now, and an hour 3 days from now. You're going to work on it little by little to see how you do.
So one of the things you said is right here, take a walk.
I know, but this one here, We're shuffling papers back and forth here. Okay. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Absolutely. Remember what we said up there about that? And reward yourself. Tell yourself, if I get this done, if this comes out looking right, I'm going to eat half of that Hershey's chocolate bar. It can be little rewards, or I'm going to go paint a purple rose of, whatever it is.
And change your environment.
Change your environment. Sometimes, Donna sometimes paints in her studio. Sometimes she paints at the office in her studio.
Dining room table.
And then sometimes she paints the dining room table. It's like she's not quite sure, because you can see, because the dining room has a lot more light than her studio. Her studio has a window, but got lots of, artificial light.
I can see Marc. And
yeah, so it depends. Yeah, so you sometimes getting out of your environment and changing it. If you have a place that's just a special place, that's good. But have 2 special places or 3 special places. And you remember, you can always, when I change your environment, you can, for instance, if you want to paint, I don't know, you're going to paint some kind of a landscape, it'd be great to go outside. It doesn't have to be the landscape you're going to paint, but just to go outside. You get that, it's total different energy than maybe being inside and all, and the phone ringing or your phone going off or whatever. So it all depends. So
Pat, why are you painting?
Why do you paint, Pat?
Because I enjoy painting. I'm in a funk right now, but I love it.
Well, we saw you. Yeah, we saw you in North Carolina, and you sat there with Sonette. Yeah, and you were just beaming. Donna and I both talked about you all a lot on the way home, even after we took the wrong turn on the way home.
That was her student too. So
Sonette, yeah.
But she was a good buddy to sit beside of.
Oh, good.
Plus, I got her up at 10 o'clock every morning for her to do her level 1 certification.
At what time?
10 o'clock in the morning for classes. She doesn't do mornings.
You were testing her?
But she did.
Yeah.
I do better in the mornings. But when I started out on Zoom, I had classes at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 5:30 or 6 every day.
That's good. And so, Julie, can you tell us why you're painting?
It makes me happy. I'm a hairdresser and I work with people all day. And when it's me and my paintbrushes, it's not anybody's schedule. It's not a schedule. Nobody talks back to you. It's just me and my paintbrushes, I have my family that I love, but I like the quiet, peaceful, just doing what you want,
Yeah. So do you guys, I know the other day, some people said they like music. Leanne said Elvis Presley.
I usually, I have TV on for a bit today, but I like it quiet. I paint with nothing more often than I paint with anything. I like the peacefulness of, I think
it's calming.
Yeah, I think when you're with people all day that talk, it's nice to have it quiet. That sounds awful. I love my customers, don't get me wrong, but
So Pat, do you like music? I mean, how do you like it?
Sometimes I come down and paint with Elvis on or or the 60s, but most of the time I like it quiet.
Oh, yeah.
And
I didn't know when
I blocked it off where the cats can't come down here, so I'm by myself.
So they give you peace when you're down there.
They leave me alone because they can't come in here. But they let me know vocally that they
What were you saying, Julie?
Well, earlier I said to Pat, maybe if she could move upstairs where she would be more motivated. She said she just didn't have a lot of motivation after her husband passed. And that was the same thing. To me, if it looks like you're in a basement with no windows. So to me, if I was on the main floor, especially if I was alone in my house where I had daylight, it might motivate me more to paint, to get back into painting.
The problem though, Pat has it beautiful with lots of her pictures, but the problem is she has so many cats, which is like having children all over you. And she'll be trying to paint or work with me, and it's climbing over her head and over her shoulder.
They love Pat, so they don't. If Pat's where they aren't, they're going to be where Pat's
They're
at.
not going to
So
leave
Pat
her
has to
alone.
be alone without the cats.
Yeah, so that's how I am kind of in my cubby in here. When I'm in, I took one of our bedrooms and I've made it my studio, and I have one window, but I don't look out that window. I'm just focused on this. But in the dining room, I can see more action going on.
Yeah.
But I don't have little ones, and I can do that. But I could watch Mark looking at TV, what he's looking at as I'm working. But if I'm sitting next to Mark, the only thing that's worked with is when I'm doing 135 wedding glasses for my son's wedding. I remember painting all those 2 different weddings, all the glasses sitting next to Mark's, our recliners next to each other. But I could hold a plate with just 3 colors, white, gold, or white, silver, and or maybe 2 colors.
Yeah, I was gonna say black, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. We had 3 colors.
Well,
So
years ago, I don't have my overhead light on, so that's why it's really dark in here. But years ago, Ray asked me if I wanted him to take out the garage door and put a new wall with the door and windows.
take out the what?
Garage door.
Take down the garage door. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Am I echoing? And put a new wall in with the door and windows. And I told him no. And now I wish I had him do it.
Oh.
Yeah, but you still could do that someday, Miss Pat.
You see what I've been spending so far trying to get this place fixed.
Doing the new deck and everything. She's had her hands full. So, you said instead of working on single days and instead of once a month, it is better to break it up. And I know the perfect thing. We need to trust the process, Mark said. And I've said that a lot. When you're learning and when you're new, when you're a beginner or when you're seasoned, is you got to trust the process. And some of the process is you've got to learn how to buy surfaces that are affordable and they work in people's homes, that they're more sellable. There's lots of things that are more sellable. And so lots of people like to do the plastic ornaments, but there's 2 things, and the same thing with clay pots. The plastic clay pots, you can get easier, you can ship them easier, but nothing's as good as a heavy surface because you're holding plastic or you're holding clay pot. The plastic's more money, the clay pot's less expensive, but the clay pot has breakage and all kinds of stuff trying to get it to shows or mailing it or whatever. So, and think about it, the weight of that clay pot feels more valuable than a piece of plastic.
Yeah.
So I don't like plastic ornaments, even though they don't break, and that's better.
What about these?
Yeah, well, the eggs, these were fun. So
these are styrofoam?
No, it's hard plastic.
Oh,
no, it's not like the plastic egg plastic.
Yeah.
These
are nice and light.
All right, but these were like $4.99.
These were $4.99
for 4 of them.
For 4 of them, so that's $1.25 a piece.
No, but I got 40% off.
Okay, well, you see, there you go.
No, so I'm saying
you're shopping. You have to do that. That's the thing that you have to recognize that.
But the whole point about this is the itty bitty Easter egg.
Yeah.
Like at church, they said, Donna,
that's harder to do than this is, isn't it?
I always painted the ornaments for church, and I said, I am so busy. Yes, I'll still do them this year if y'all bring me the ornaments. Right? I had to do 70. So guess what they brought? This sweet little young girl that was in charge of the secretary. She went and got me these little teeny ornaments.
Which is twice as hard to paint as something like that.
A big ornament was just $1 more a package for 12, but a big ornament I could do fast. So, I mean, that's part of the surface thing and being smart.
Yeah.
And part of where you put your energy and selling. So you guys ought to ask Leanne Ozzie because she's in a little community and she's doing well.
Yeah. Don't ever think you've got it all figured out, because you don't. We've learned that one. You think you've got it all figured out and you know what surfaces will sell and what they want, what colors, and seldom does that last for very long before you're finding yourself going, oh my goodness, what have I done? So I know for a while, and we don't talk about much, but we used to have a painted mailbox business. And we painted a lot of mailboxes, and Don would make the designs, then we'd paint mailboxes. And there was a lot of things with the mailboxes, though. Number one, you couldn't just go you had to have a USPS approved receptacle. There's a lot of different sizes and stuff. But then there's things like this. We didn't mind getting the galvanized epoxy painted mailboxes, but then along came the aluminum mailboxes. The problem with the aluminum mailboxes is they were almost 3 times as much as a galvanized painted mailbox. But and now the galvanized paint was a lot heavier than the aluminum. So you had all kinds of factors to figure into this, shipping and everything. But you can't ever just say, I got to figure it's a constant thing you've got to review and look at. T-shirts for a while. Donna sold t-shirt. And then for some reason, we had a couple of shows where it was cold weather here in Florida, which we don't get, and everybody wanted a sweatshirt. Right? Everybody wanted a sweatshirt. And they didn't want a gray sweatshirt. They wanted a painted white sweatshirt. So it was just like you had to look and work and shop and figure out those things. But that's the thing, back to, don't ever give up. Be persistent. There's lots to do. And the thing about painting, the decorative painting, you guys as artists, you need to be compensated for your time. So if you're just doing it as a hobby or love, that's wonderful. But figure out what is taken from you for that. Maybe you need to be able to compensate your time. Let me give you an idea. For instance, and Donna did years ago. We decided one time she was painting and doing lots. This is before even we did the production painting. We decided that Donna said, I would like somebody to come here twice a week and help with the kids for like 4 hours in the morning or 4 hours in the afternoon, and maybe do some little projects, wash windows or do something. And so we decided, okay, well, we've got to do enough to pay that. So, because that was Donna's reward. She had this young lady come twice a week and put in a few hours. And it wasn't real expensive, but it made Donna feel like a queen because all of a sudden she had someone to come and help and do things.
Yeah.
So, because then she felt like I can take the time from painting from my family and my stuff. I can do that because I've got someone to help. So pay yourself. Always pay yourself. Even if you're not selling, pay yourself. Pay yourself might be Hershey's chocolate bars. It might be a milkshake. It might be go to a movie. I don't know what it is, but pay yourself so that you feel like you want to keep yourself feeling like you have great worth, because you do. Remember, not everybody is like you. They're not artists. They're not creative. Just like me, I'm not an artist. I'm not creative in that respect. And they're not that way. But you were blessed, and use that blessing to the ultimate, because I am absolutely positive that Heavenly Father will bless you when you do that, because you've been given a gift. And when you've got a gift, if you use that gift, you get to keep that gift. If you don't use the gift, it just seems to fade away. So don't ever quit. Don't ever not try a project. I can remember when somebody came to Don with a galvanized watering can, and they said, we want you to paint on this. And we looked at each other like, spout sticking out, handle sticking out. What are we going to do? How are we going to do that stupid thing? And and guess what? It was one of the things that went on QV and sold, I don't know, we sold like 10,000 of those. That was crazy. So you do not know. You have no idea
what your niche will be.
You don't know what it'll be. And Julie, you might be painting, you might end up doing some kind of, you come up with your own idea for some kind of this portrait for this lady who's asking this, and who knows? And people see stuff and they say, oh, who did that? Just one last thing, I'll let Donna finish up. Don't ever do something so well that you don't compensate you enough, and someone can say, they did a really great job and they're cheap.
Yeah.
You don't ever want to be cheap. You want to be compensated. You want to be, you have worth and value. So you want to, tell somebody, if you tell your friends about me, please do me a favor. please tell them I'd love to do that and all, but please don't tell them I'm cheap. Even if you give your friend that your friend says, Julie, give me a super good deal. And you do, just say, great, I'll do that. But don't you ever tell anyone I'm cheap. Don't you ever tell them how much, because I'm doing it. Right, Pat? You cannot do that, because people, they're just like, oh, well, it's cheap, I'll do it. And it's not cheap. So
one thing I want to end with is to let you know, I know that you guys, many of you have seen me do many different things. And part of that, so I want you to think, when I think about stress and stress awareness, sometimes I will have a panic attack about,
yes, I can attest
so one of the things, people look at me and they go, oh my gosh. And I said, I really think they like, are you on drugs or whatever? Well, how can you do all this stuff? One of the things I want you to know is I am apparently, my sister and my daughters are high energy people. But one thing that I want you to know is I never just do one thing. But I think because it bores me, or it doesn't motivate me, right? So I think it's healthy during different seasons of your life, because I was a heavy duty mom, soccer mom, ran everything at church. I've had different seasons in my life, and I've had to be patient to know I will have a season in my life where I'm not nursing a baby 24/7. So the things in your life change depending on your age, depending on your losses and things that happen. So one thing that has kept me to have less stress is, all right, I can't do this anymore. This painting is looking like crap. I'll get up and say, oh, I'm going to go in there and work on those eggs for a little bit, or doing multiple things, doing multiple ways of making an income. And I go on YouTube, I do a live, I do a TikTok, I do different things because I touch different people that way, but it also touches me. The one thing I just did recently is going to North Carolina and seeing friends that some of them I have seen 10 years in a row, thanks to Pat. Pat, and then except for the last 2 years, and she still helps it happen. For 8 years, she had me and Marc come up there, and we had amazing opportunities to make amazing friends. And Pat's made those lifelong friends by doing what she did, by promoting it. And so when I was there and Marc was there, we felt that we had the long drive up and the long drive back, which we had time to be together, and we strategized on my pad, writing down every idea Marc has in his brain, or I have. And when we got there, the most amazing compliment is they were like, oh, these 5 newbies, this is the first time they've ever been there. They were like nervous as could be. And I said, oh, I'll never be able to stay up with you. I said, I'm better. I'm being a good girl, I promise. And at the end of the first day, there must have been 4 or 5 who turned around, sat back and went, I have never finished a project in any workshop, in any convention, and I finished today. They all finished their pieces. And on the second day, they finished their pieces. The third day,
no.
The third day, besides they were exhausted, and it was a more difficult project. I mean, not difficult, but more things to accomplish. Yeah. But I have to tell you, it built my spirit so much. So we have to do some things that build our spirit, and some things that are healthy for you. And so when I say I don't like painting little things, but it's okay sometimes to paint eggs. And I like to paint big canvases because I make a lot more money for selling a big canvas than a small canvas. So there's different things, and you can't expect to have peace on all of them. And you can't expect, if you want to make money doing your art for a living, you can't just you can, but it wears you out. So it emotionally and physically. And so just a little note from Donna. I like painting on canvas. I like painting on glass. Every once in a while I got to get out that fabric. I like getting on and talking to you guys. I like seeing where your thought process is. And I want you to think about that. Don't think I'm crazy. Just know that you know what? I have no patience. I wanted all those kids at my house, all the neighbors and all, and my kids at my house, because then I didn't have to worry where my kids were. So I just want you to know, I can't believe that I can teach, because I wasn't fun at teaching little kids and Sunday school stuff. That was not my thing, because I had so many kids. It was my break, right? But I have to tell you, I am passionate about teaching, and that is not normal for me. Like, I don't want 50 women out there and 10 of them in the middle of the room whining that this doesn't work. I can't do this. This doesn't work. But I've learned over the years, am I the best teacher out there? No. I even read in the Society of Decorative Painting magazine, I went, Marc, there's 10 things that a really good teacher never does. And I went, I've broken all these rules. But so why do they say, Marc, I don't understand. Why do they say I'm such a good teacher? Because sometimes you are and sometimes you're not. But I looked at that, and it's how we present ourselves and how we learned from our mistakes.
Well, keep your passion.
Yes, Pat. Yes, Pat.
At the first workshop, you are real. That's what everybody that said came, they said, you know, we all put you up here on a pedestal. And they said, she's real.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, she is. Yes, she is.
I think the best compliment she ever got that I heard from someone was, they said, I feel like Donna and I are standing at the kitchen sink washing dishes together and talking. And I think that was like, you know, that just says, you don't need to be this, you don't need to be that. We were just friends. Somebody's washing, somebody's drying. We're just standing there talking. Yeah. And that was like, I've often told her, oh, that's the best compliment you ever received, because that is real. That's just what you're doing, you know, and you're enjoying yourself. And that's what I see. I see that in so many. And Don just says all the time, I am the luckiest painter in the world, because the people that I get to paint with are the most absolute wonderful people in the world. That's how she really feels. She does. So,
we're all buddies, and friends. So if any of you have questions and you want to know more, and we can't cover everything at once, but we're going to have, I was going to tell you guys, we come on, where is it? I just put this out. So the 25th is Donna's Corner. And we are painting the tree with a hummingbird blossom, the blossoms and the hummingbirds at 1 o'clock. I have to, because we are traveling next week, we have to have that at 1, because that night I have a Zoom lesson, our last Zoom lesson for the month. And that's why we're on Saturday today, is because we're going to be gone next Wednesday. So we're usually on Wednesdays for anybody who just checked in and checked out, and what we're doing on our Patreon podcast. Yes, Pat. You're turned off, Pat.
1 o'clock Wednesday.
1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
What, this Wednesday?
Next Wednesday. No, the 25th.
This one.
Oh,
What's that?
the 25th.
That's Friday.
Okay, Friday.
Not Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, guys, thank you for being here today on Saturday and giving us time. And as always, I'm going to tell you, do something for us. Make sure whoever it is or whatever it is, whether it be a child, a cat, a husband, whatever, please tell them thank you for us, that they allowed you to have some time with us and give up their time with you. So we appreciate it. And each of you have a wonderful Easter. Be safe.
Happy Easter.
Yep. And Jesus Christ is our Savior and Redeemer, indeed. So have a good holiday. Be safe in all that you do. Reach out to those who may not be having as great a day as you are. A simple phone call or an email can change somebody's whole day in life. It really can.
And he lives within us. So we need to share that, guys.
Yeah. So. All right, guys, we love you. Thanks for being on, spending time with us. Bye-bye.
Happy Easter. Thank you.
All right.
Happy Easter. Thanks you guys for being on.
Yeah, thank you.
Your solos tonight.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.